I know. That song isn't as good as the actual
I
SiftPop
was
theme song.
bobbing my head. What are you talking
It is
about?
good though, right? Yeah. No, it's good.
As the kids say, it is a banger.
Is that what they say? Do they still say that?
While I was listening to it, some kids came over, looked in my window, and said, "That's a banger." And I said, "Get out of my house!" And
Yeah.
yeah,
Get off my lawn.
yeah, get off my lawn. I am slowly turning into Clint Eastwood. I tell you.
No cap.
No cap.
That's a
Mode.
banger.
That's what's doing it.
All right, so you may notice this a little bit different than our usual live broadcast. I am running the ship today, and so it'll be very stripped down. But we did want to go live because we weren't live. I think it was last week. We didn't do live video, so we didn't want to do that this week. That's true. We didn't do video at all. We just did audio last week. Did an old school audio recording last week. But this week we are live again. Well, that can be the case every week, Andrew. It's not like you ever stand up.
If not, I'm massively underdressed.
So, thank you for hanging out with us on a Saturday afternoon. We're going to go ahead and start the podcast recording. Feel free to comment, all the stuff you would usually do. But this will be more of just kind of a strip back behind the scenes of a podcast recording than a full audio, a full video show. Producer Phil will be back next week, I believe, and we should be back in the swing of things as far as producing up the YouTube show and all that fun stuff as well. So I'm going to kick us off with the intro, and we'll record it just like that. And here we go. Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that's not smart enough to know how smart we are. It's SiftPop. Welcome to SiftPop Weekly, streaming live most weekends, or available to download later in your podcast feed, unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks.
Patrons get those perks.
Woo!
I'm your host, Aaron Dicer. No one gets hurt. 3 hours of work was my recruiting pitch to him for the podcast. It's Andrew Ormsby, ladies and gentlemen.
Ahoy!
Each week we'll chat about movies, television, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. And please welcome our guest this week. He's our very own conspiracy Santa. It's Ian Whittington!
Hey.
Wait, is there any other... Well, sorry, first of all, hi. Is there any other type of Santa than a conspiracy Santa? Isn't the whole thing just a big cononsperency?
Listen, Ian, there are children who listen to this podcast.
I'm so sorry. Please stop listening. Parents, I judge you.
I have
stories. The Mel Gibson version of Santa, which blows everything up, Mm-hmm. So there's two. And there's also Krampus. Santa. We all know what Krampus is, which is closer to Mel Gibson's version than anything, really.
There's the Tim Allen version of Santa,
the Santa Claus,
that has completely screwed up my ability to spell Santa Claus anymore because of the pun with Clause. And so now I accidentally throw an E on Santa Claus every once in a while. And
no.
Yeah, it's
Santa
really
Claus.
It's really all Tim Allen's fault. Really, it's all Tim Allen's fault.
Everything.
This will not be the last time Klaus comes up during the podcast. Just a little teaser there. We've got some fun stuff we're going to do. We're going to do a couple reviews, as is our want. One of them is going to be for the Tomorrow War that you can check out on Amazon Prime, and then No Sudden Move, which came out on HBOMax. And we've got a best ever challenge for best ever J.K. Simmons movies. We'll do our top 5 of those since he was hanging out in the Tomorrow War a little bit. But we're going to have a good time doing it. Ian, welcome back. It's good to have you here. We've had a lot of fun talking about the differences between England and America as far as like cinema goes and those kind of things in our members only pre-show. I appreciate you having those conversations and getting the antenna set up at your home to broadcast all the way over here into the States. It's just a lot of work you've put into this, and we want you to know how much we appreciate it.
See, Ian doesn't know this. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it's the 30 gerbils that are running around powering the antenna that you've got to feel sorry for. I'm doing none of this.
Yeah, it's always the gerbils you feel sorry for.
Ian doesn't know this, but actually Aaron scheduled Ian to come on this week so we could remind him of how America won the...
Oh, we're going to do that. Cool. We're going to go there. Very nice. Cool. Good. Yeah. Starting strong. Yeah, Let's do it. Cool.
Listen.
How's that language working for you?
Don't
you
know
like
what you're
some
talking
tea?
about, man. Yeah.
I have
Give
to
me
say
a beer and beef jerky.
it was not intentional, but it sure is interesting that we have brought you here to celebrate the independence of the colonies this
Happy
weekend.
Ungrateful Colony Day.
Yes,
Ungrateful
exactly.
jerks.
Have you seen? It just came out, so it would not surprise me if you haven't. I just happened to watch it yesterday because that's what I do with new movies. I watch them. But
Wait, what?
There's an animated film that came out on Netflix yesterday. Called America or something along those lines, and it's basically
it's like America the Great or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah,
and
I haven't.
It's like a really, really, really discount Team America World Police kind of idea. Like
nice.
It's, I think that's what they're going for. It's terrible. I'll just tell you. Like I thought it was absolutely terrible, and there's a lot of talent involved. So I was kind of surprised at how bad it was. But it just felt like nobody in that movie from any level of organization or production was like, maybe we shouldn't do this. Like everything goes. America the Motion Picture. Thank you, chat, giving that to us. America the Motion. There were no rules, and the thing about no rules in comedy is it can feel very freeing, but it also immediately becomes, by definition, lazy, right? Because you're not having to work at something to put it in some kind of structure, and so there's no. It's all just like, this joke seems hilarious. Let's throw it out there. This thing seems way over the top and, pushing boundaries. Let's do that. And so I don't know. I was unimpressed when I watched it.
Do you think 10 days ago they said, oh, no, it's the 4th of July and we have nothing. Right, what can we come up with in 9 days?
Listen, it kind of felt that way. I'm just saying when... Your cast is George Washington, whose best friend is Abraham Lincoln, and they are teaming up with Sam Adams, who is a frat boy at the local college, and they're fighting a werewolf version of Benedict Arnold.
Good Lord.
Thomas Edison joins the team, a young Chinese woman named Thomas Edison, who is all about science. And yeah, so this is what I'm like, there's no, the look Andrew is giving you right now.
That is the definition of too busy wondering if you could to wonder if you should.
Yes, exactly.
Is this the one on Netflix I saw that has like George Washington crossing the Delaware as like the cover art or something to it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know which one to skip. No, actually, you know what, Aaron, I hate to tell you, everything you just described kind of makes me want to go,
I know.
What?
I know.
Everything you just said, it doesn't sound good, but I have to see it. It's like a car crash, I gotta look.
I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah, Ian's got it.
Almost just for the audacity of it. I totally get it. But there was one joke that I was like, oh, that was a good joke there. And I'm just going to spoil it right now so you don't have to watch it if you don't want to. The only good joke, I'm about to spoil it for you.
I'm ready.
So feel free to jump ahead 30 seconds
Blow
if you
my
want.
mind.
But
we can't do that, Aaron.
there is a Fast and Furious parody section with horses instead of cars during this movie.
In space?
No, not in space. Not in space.
Are they drifting?
Yep. Yeah, the horses drift and they have like neon, on them. And
I don't know if you're trolling us or not.
What is this movie?
I am not. I am not. But one of the people says these guys live their life a quarter mule at a time. So there you go.
Oh, it's a dad pun. That's what got here. Of course, it was a dad pun.
Yeah, I'm assuming you were a guest writer on this film, and that was your contribution.
No, that was the only good joke in the movie. Okay, so maybe that does mean I was a guest writer. Who knows?
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the show. We'll kick it off with a review for The Tomorrow War. An ordinary family man named Dan Forrester is recruited by time travelers from 30 years in the future to fight in a deadly war against aliens. Chris Pratt, starring in this one, comes to us from Chris McKay is directing this, who I think his only other major credit is the Lego Batman movie, so to kind of give you some context on that. So, yeah, you've got some other people you've seen here before. You've got, I always mispronounce her name.
Evonne Stryovsky.
is it Stryofsky?
Nice.
So, anyhow, from Chuck, you may know her from Chuck or Dexter as well. Hopping in here, and then several others as well. What did you guys think about? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay? Ian, you get to kick us off.
High side of dislike, as in close to it's okay, but it eventually landed right in dislike.
Dislike. Andrew, what do you got?
Low side of loved it.
Ooh, I like it. A little diversity. Good. I thought I was going to be the one to start us off because I kind of enjoyed this movie. I'm not on the low side of loved it though. I am on the low side of liked it. I'm maybe bordering into just liked it. I'm actually having a hard time letting my thoughts kind of, coalesce on this because it's a movie that consecutively I moments just loved, and then there were moments I'm like, this is a bad movie, and then there were moments that I loved, and so it just I'm having a little bit of trouble with this one. Andrew, tell us why you loved it. What did you love about this?
Well, I want to build off what you were just talking about specific moments. I broke this down into 3 sections. First act, second act, third act. The first act I gave B+. I thought it did pretty good. It built tension, what are these creatures, what's going on and everything. Once you get to the actual future war, A+++++, that entire section had me. It was intense. The action was amazing. Creature designs were on point. There were actually some emotional moments that actually hit for me. The third act of this movie gets a C-. I think that the third half of this movie last third of this movie is just very mediocre, and it kind of tarnishes how good that second section is. But that second section is so good for me that I have to say I love this movie because it's the biggest part of the movie.
You have similar feelings to me. I'll just kind of jump off that a little bit, unless you had anything else you wanted to mention before I hop in. But I'm in a similar place, but I don't think it was easy for me to divide my feelings chronologically like it was for you. I didn't feel consistently the same way during the first third, second act, third act kind of idea. I kind of went back and forth during both, but the primary thing I loved is the creature work, the sci-fi action, the world building. They're not just good, they're great.
Really
the
good.
Creatures are incredible in this movie. Some of the sci-fi action is the best sci-fi action I've seen in a long time. And a lot of that has to do with the creature work. I think a lot of it has to do with the direction, kind of the camera work, understanding how to shoot it. And a lot of it has to do with just the world building. And they set some rules, and whether you want to believe them or whether they make sense or not, they stick to their rules. And this is hard for me to say with a time travel movie. I'm notoriously hard on time travel movies. And it's not a spoiler that this is a time travel movie. It's right there in the description. But but I will just say, and I do want to do some spoilers on this. I think we will record a little bit of a spoiler on this. There are some things we have to talk about that I don't feel comfortable sharing on the non-spoiler section. But I will say this. I think this movie handles time travel in a way that I don't prefer, but it is consistent in the way that it handles it. I don't think there's I got a little sniffle from Ian on that. A little bewitched nose tingle there. But I'm excited to hear what you thought. But as far as me, when I was taking a moment to go, does that hold up? I was like, no, not really. But also the movie has told me this is the way it works, and they're just sticking to that. Yeah. So I kind of liked the world building all around. The performances were they were decent to good. I don't know that anybody is giving a spectacular performance here, but everybody is kind of doing their job. I always love J.K. Simmons popping up in something. I think he may be my favorite as far as performances go in this.
Interesting.
But yeah, I don't know. So for me, it was kind of overall just there's so much great world building here that I think I really like this movie. And then there would be a moment, whether it's during the first act, second act, or third act, where I'd be like, well, that's just dumb. Like there would just be those moments where I'm like,
I got that pretty quick.
Yeah, why do you got to do that? Like, so I don't know, man. I think you tighten this movie up a little bit, and it's up there with Edge of Tomorrow and some other movies like
very
that.
big Edge of Tomorrow vibes from this movie.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Tomorrow is right there in the title, so it's begging for it. It is begging for it.
Ian, we haven't really heard from.
Yes, exactly.
Ian, we haven't really heard from you on this one yet.
Yeah, Ian, give us some thoughts.
This is fascinating. I think we all feel exactly the same, but we've landed in exactly different places, which is fantastic. That's great. That's fascinating. I echo everything that you guys said. I just ended up at the bottom end of because I think the things that bugged you guys really, really bugged me. The alien design is fantastic. I think I want that. I'm way more interested in that universe than continuing with Prometheus and all of that stuff, to be honest. Like, I think I want to explore a bit more of that. The performances didn't do anything for me at all. The emotional moments didn't hit. I saw the themes that they were running through, but for me, I think they were there's too many movies in here. You've got a sci-fi, you've got a high concept sci-fi, you've got a disaster movie, a post-apocalyptic movie because the war's pretty much done, a drama, some comedy, just an all-out war film, and then you've got this emotional drama family, almost one-man quest kind of film. Mm-hmm. And if it had picked up on any one of those things and run with it, I think I'm all in, and I think I'm with you, Andrew. I think I'm in the loved it, but I think this was trying to grasp at too many different opportunities and didn't quite stick the landing on any of them for me.
I think it's trying to be the, man trying to find purpose, trying to find, meaning. I think that's what it's trying to be consistently through. If there is a through line, I think that's what it is. But and that's part of, that's almost part of the negative is we've seen that through line through the history of cinema so many times about, another white man trying to figure out what it means to be a good dad and a good father.
What a burden it is to be me.
Yeah. So that kind of has a little bit of that to it, but I do think that is the point. Like, I think that is what they are trying to, is Chris Pratt's character is supposed to be our connecting piece throughout what we're experiencing here. I don't deny that there are different genre elements. I didn't feel confused by them, though. I feel like the movie's tone held up pretty well. Yeah. So
no, I think it didn't under-explain anything or leave me scratching my head of, hang on a minute, that's weird and broken. It did all get wrapped up, but I think if there was a story that I'd want to follow, it's the soldier that, I don't know how much, that's probably going to be a bit spoilery. It's the train.
The one who...
Yeah, let's hold that.
Coming back.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I want his story. If we'd followed him, I think I'm way more invested. I just don't care about Chris Pratt's. The most exciting thing about him is his name. It's like Dan Forrester on a mission. I just did not care about him and what he was doing. And why
there you go. Well, that will define the experience for you because it is a story about that character. And so if we're not connecting to it, that makes complete sense. Andrew, you seem like you were heading somewhere.
Well, I was going to say that it sounds like you guys didn't, that I appreciated the Evonne Strahovski performance a lot more than you guys did. Her big emotional speech that she gives, that hit for me so hard. I don't know why. It was good. Powerful. I thought her performance was really good. I liked her performance throughout the entire movie. And they do something with her character where something is painfully obvious that you think is going to be, shown later in the movie, but they don't care. They're going to get it out of the way.
I love that, actually. I really love that. I thought that was a great story movement. We'll talk more about it more specifically in spoilers, but
exactly.
But yeah,
I'm glad that they were like, because I knew something, and I'm like, of course, but they didn't treat me like I'm not smart enough to have figured that out already.
That is exactly it. The biggest disconnect from movies is when they hold a secret that everyone knows as if everyone doesn't know it, you know? And it's just the worst.
Give me some credit.
Yeah.
On the other end of that, though, there is a character plant for foreshadowing that I'll say has eruptive elements to it that I was like, this is so obvious that this is going to come back later on. And I kind of don't want it. Yeah, I don't want it to. I mean, there's an element to this movie that didn't need explained, that the third act of this movie tries to explain, that I'm like, no, leave it all a mystery.
Bad movie. Stop it.
Yeah, stop it. I don't want to know. But
interesting. Yeah. I'm excited to talk about that in spoilers. I'm not sure I 100% agree, but I think I know what you're saying. But we'll cover it in a little more detail in our SIF spoil, which should follow this episode in your podcast feed. As far as the character that Evonne played, Stryovsky, I don't know. I'm just going to stop trying.
Stradivarius.
Yes, we're going with YS. The character that YS played, I don't know. I felt like she's fine, but I think story-wise and plot-wise, and again, we can't get into too much of it until spoilers, but sure. I think she was starting from a tough position with that character, and there was so much about it I didn't buy that I think I was having trouble with her performance because of that, which isn't fair to her as an actor. But yeah, it was kind of one of those things.
She has the most baggage out of any character in the movie, I think.
Yeah. Betty Gilpin showing up here as well. I'm loving seeing Betty Gilpin and stuff. It was
weird. I'm not gonna lie. It was weird. I was like, what? Really? Okay. I mean,
yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ian.
No, I love that we got a sneaky bit of Marilyn Radchkub from 24. I haven't seen her since Chloe in 24, and I think she's fantastic. I was like, yay! I'm rooting for you.
Yeah. It was interesting. Her and Sam Richardson, the Gator character. Yeah. They both, of all the performances, those two felt to me like they were in a little bit of a different movie than everybody else. Did you guys notice that?
The other comic relief. I can't remember his name.
Cohen.
Mike Cohen?
Sam Richardson?
Cohen is the character's name. It's Mike Mitchell, who is the actor.
Yeah, Mike Mitchell. Sam Richardson was the one I was talking about. So So Nora Gator and the Mike Mitchell character. I agree. Those three felt like, they're in a little bit of a more
you're in an Edgar Wright film.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And that was noticeable because everybody else seemed to be taking it a little more seriously than them.
Rightfully so.
Well, yeah, it's a fair point. It's a fair point. Let's see. What else do we want to talk about, guys? What else about this movie do we feel like we need to go through to kind of fully get our thoughts out on it?
So you mentioned that you really liked the action, and I agree. There's some of it that's great, and there's actually a couple of really cool one shots in it. But for me, most of it felt like shooting guns, shooting guns.
Man.
No,
I don't feel that way. Yes, there was a lot of explosion. There was a lot of artillery. But one of the things I liked about the movie that it wasn't just the explosion or the artillery on the screen. There was an understanding of what those explosions were doing, where that artillery was going. There were visuals that showed, the creature involved. I thought the creature involvement in those shots was absolutely spectacular. Like, none of the CG was bad enough that it was distracting for me. I thought it was all pretty well handled. I was really impressed by. Yes, there's a lot of explodey, but I think it happens. In a way that made sense visually and also furthered the action and intensity and of the scene. So yeah.
I think I totally agree with what they're shooting at is very specific. They're giving very specific instructions and they follow them. And there's nothing worse than you've been told to do this and then you go and do something else and the movie doesn't punish you for it. Like, they follow the instructions. But for me, it did seem like a lot of bullets flying around. But I may just need to rewatch it. Maybe I was just too invested in the story and just.
I mean, maybe I was just in like a an action movie stupor too. Like, I may have just been in a giddy moment. But
I need this.
I felt like the shots were very specific. Like, especially a lot of the detail work with appendages and those kind of things, and the reason they were shooting at a certain creature in a certain place, and it felt right to me. So, like, I never felt like, oh, it's just more noise for noise sake or more bullets for bullets sake. It all felt very real.
Yeah. My one last thing besides no post-credit scene is that I think that this movie is very patient to get to that shooty boom boom, because like there's a pretty good.
It is and it isn't. I mean. They did the thing that so many movies do that I'm getting annoyed by, which is, bet you're wondering how I found myself here.
I am so dumb. I have a running joke, which is, please stop opening the movie with the middle/end of your movie. Like, it's so insulting that you think this movie can't grab my attention, and I don't have the attention span to stick with you unless you give me 5 minutes of action up front. It's so annoying.
So besides that, Andrew, you were talking about the patience of the movie. Go ahead and continue. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. It's like, okay, so building from that moment that you're talking about, Ian, where that picks up to, like, from where that starts to the big explosions and everything. I think that the movie is very good at building suspense, because while during that time, you're getting a sense of the environment. You're getting a sense of the dread. You're seeing the horrors that are, around them. And then by the time it is time for the guns to go off, you are, or for me anyway, I was like invested. I'm like, okay, because then you get the cool creature reveal. And I think the way that they actually did the reveal for these things was so well done. It just didn't pop out, and you're like, oh, there it is. The slow pan. It's a good payoff, I think, because the entire movie up to that point, I think I can't remember how long, but it had to have been at least 45 minutes before a gun was even shot in this movie, I think.
Yeah, because it's a long movie, but they do. I didn't feel like it was paced poorly, so I think I agree with you on that one. For the 2 hour and 20-minute runtime, I think it uses that time wisely.
And that's the one thing I would say, and I'll make that my kind of one last thing is, and I'll tie it back to what we were talking about with the intro scene. But I think the movie, in so many ways, is unconcerned with typical storytelling tropes. The movie has a lot of guts to do what it does with that third act. Because you could say in many ways, and I don't think you would be wrong in saying so, that the real climax of the movie happens halfway through the movie. You know what I mean? So, like, to be able to say, nope, there's 45 minutes of movie left, and we're going to hold your attention for 45 more minutes. I liked that, or try to, and I like that. Now, I know that last third act was your least favorite, Andrew, and I understand that. And I think, considering the level of difficulty, that doesn't surprise me, because, there are a reason that storytelling tropes are the way they are, because, we are creatures of habit, and we like hearing stories in a certain way. They're more exciting that way. So it made it even more disappointing to me that they did that thing at the beginning, when the movie itself, throughout the rest of the movie, is just concerned with telling us the story in the way that it wants to, rather than in some sort of typical story way. So to do that, I bet you're wondering how I got here. Opening was
grumble.
Was really annoying to me, because aside from even the trust thing that you're talking about, Ian, which is a huge part of it, I think the stuff you're talking about with patience, Andrew, is even better if they don't put that intro scene there. I think the buildup of the characters, finding our way into the family, all that kind of stuff, because what we're doing as a movie viewer now is we're integrating ourselves into the situation we're in instead of going, oh, when do we get back there? Oh, I wonder how they get to that place. Oh, like it adds this element of, I know what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be like every great movie has to have an incredible, action moment at the beginning or something, and I don't know where we learned that. I was just talking about the movie Airport recently, which I saw, which is often credited as being the first real big disaster movie that Hollywood put out. That movie goes 90 minutes before any action. Yeah. Like it's crazy like how much it trusts the audience to be like, oh, I'm getting involved in these characters. I'm understanding who they are. I'm getting the mechanics of how they relate, where we're going with the plot, how that interacts. That's great. I love that stuff. And maybe they're right. Maybe modern audiences in general aren't like me and need that, or they're just going to be bored and walk out of the theater or turn it off at home or whatever. But I'd like it better the other way. I'd like it without that.
No, I totally understand what you're saying. It was just interesting because that section of that intro to the movie, I didn't give it a second thought, but I can see how now that you bring it up, it is obvious how that could really irritate somebody.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Ian, did you have one last thing you wanted to mention before we move on?
Well, my one last thing was that Shooty Shooty Boom Boom was the sequel to Chitty Chitty Bang Bang that we never quite got.
Yes. Yeah. So that was a direct-to-video version.
Yeah, there is a great pun title I'm sure somebody has made about a horrible action movie that involves a swear word off of the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang movie title. Yes. I'm sure that has been done before. All right, let's head into the next review then, shall we? Let's talk about No Sudden Move. A group of criminals are brought together under mysterious circumstances to have to work together to uncover what's really going on when their simple job goes completely sideways. No Sudden Move is available on HBOMax and at theaters, I believe. I believe you can go out and see this one. You've got a wide-ranging cast towards the center of it. Everybody's in this movie. Yeah, everybody's in this movie. Towards the center of it, you've got Don Cheadle, Benicio del Toro, Kieran Culkin, David Harbour plays a large role, and then kind of on the periphery, you've got people like John Hamm, Brendan Fraser, who we haven't seen in a long time.
That was strange.
I guess, technically we haven't seen him, but if you watch Doom Patrol, he's the voice. So
right. And Ray Liotta, and one other actor that we will not name, just because it's always
good because I nearly did. I nearly just came right out with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always find it fun when a movie because his name isn't in the opening credits, and so or their name, I should say. Their name is not in the opening credits. Yeah, I'm sorry. Anyhow, so yeah, what did you guys? And I should mention Steven Soderbergh directing this one and getting back on just being one of the most prolific directors out there. He's just putting stuff out all the time, and I love it. There was a time, 10 years ago, where he was like, "I'm done making movies," and we all knew he was lying, but he definitely is finding his second wind. So, what did you guys think? Like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay? Andrew, why don't you kick us off on this one?
I liked it. Solid liked it.
Solid liked it. Ian, what do you got?
I'm the high side of liked it. I am cresting, but yeah, for the minute, I'm high side of liked it. Yeah,
high side of liked it.
Aaron, Soderbergh guy, what'd you think?
Yeah, I'm in the loved it category. Probably low side of loved it. Yeah, Soderbergh's got my number, man. I just think he has this way of telling stories where I'm just always invested. It doesn't matter what the topic is. It doesn't matter who the characters are. I mean, it does, but only in that he is telling me who they are, showing me who they are, showing me why this story is interesting, showing me why these people are important and what it means. And all the time underlaying these beautiful themes of whatever he has to say, usually about capitalism. Usually his movies have a lot to do with with the idea of money and trust. This one specifically had everything to do with trust. This is an entire movie about who can you trust, and the answer might be no one. So yeah, this movie is X-Files Trust No One, the movie. That is really what Sodaberg is doing here. But yeah, I had a great time. I absolutely loved this. I think Don Cheadle is perfect at the center of this movie. He is a steadiness in the craziness that's going on around him, and is our perfect connecting point. He's not a perfect person, but he seems to be at a point in his life where he's just like had enough of the nonsense, and he wants to find, what his next chapter is. And I think if we have a rooting stake in the movie, it is with the Don Cheadle character. And it's interesting how I'm excited to hear what you have to say, Andrew, as far as like, where you might have found a rooting place otherwise, or not at all. But for me, I was in the place where I was like, this is the one of these people that is in the center while all this is swirling around. And then I'm rooting for them because they're just so no nonsense. They know where they're going. They know what they want, but the entire world around them is, trying to undercut them, undermine them. Anyhow, I really connected to that. We didn't mention John Hamm flying in here for a cup of coffee, playing his typical FBI director character.
It does make you think, does this cross over with all of his detective films? Because it can easily be copy and paste.
I honestly thought that this was the prequel to Bad Times at the El Royale.
Or The Town, or whatever.
Town.
Yeah.
Any of them.
Yeah, he's probably a Doctor Who type character that just pops into different eras. To play the exact same.
That's the story I want.
So anyhow, I had a really good time with it. I think thematically, we all know that is kind of where I land on what means the most to me. And I think just the nuance of the way this played with, there's a scene where they're debating who gets to sit in the back seat, and it's all about trust, right?
Great.
And it's so great. And this movie is full of those scenes. It's full of those kind of just like little character moments that service the characters, but also service the themes and also service the plot. And by the way, the plot in this movie, and this is maybe even a negative for some, if not maybe even a little bit me, is kind of confusing. It's like, and when I say that, I just mean it's intricate. Like, this is not a scroll on your phone while you're watching type movie. If you want to know what's going on and what this movie is about, you're going to have to pay attention. And I kind of dig that. I kind of like that. There
isn't an exposition at the end which just explains every single step of this is where you went wrong and this is what everyone else was doing. It kind of trusts you to have followed what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what that scene reminded me of? Do you remember in The Matrix Reloaded when he's talking to the architect in the room, and the architect is just going on with all this high rate, a whole bunch of like fancy words and stuff like that, and you're like, okay, you don't really need to go on like this. Nobody talks like this kind of thing. But
which scene reminds you of that?
Are you talking about Mystery Man? How he's explaining how the world works and how there's a plan and they don't know they're playing it.
Oh, okay. All right.
He reminded me of the architect in The Matrix, where I'm like, okay, a lot of words that have
kind of is
of articulate, consonants and stuff like that. Here's my main issue with the movie. My main issue with the movie is I can't think of any character in this movie that had an arc. I think that every single character in this movie, maybe I'm wrong, but I can't think of any character in this movie who was different from who they were at the beginning of the movie. And it's really like, that is really what helps me invest in a character. I think actually out of our two main leads, which I think are Don Cheadle and Benicio del Toro, I was actually more invested in Benicio del Toro because he kind of felt more like a angel on the shoulder to Don Cheadle, like you need to stop being greedy, stuff like that. He kind of seemed like a voice of reason. Stop. Exactly. Yeah. But Don Cheadle was. Go ahead.
No. So much of that stuff though was wrong. He wasn't being smart. He wasn't being wise. He was being racist with a lot of that stuff. Like that's like part of his character was to part of the story is how nobody around Don Cheadle understands who he actually is. There's this beautiful moment with Mystery Man that sums this up for me, and the Benicio del Toro stuff does as well, where Mystery Man is talking about changing his name from Lowenstein to Lowen, and Cheadle just says something like, "Yeah, that Stein thing must have been pretty hard," or something like that. And it's just this beautiful, understated, like this is my life, like kind of thing, and it's so great. And the Benicio stuff, a lot of it, like about the greed and that kind of stuff, is assumptions and projection that he's making about Don Cheadle. And we know it is because of what Don Cheadle does at the end of this movie. Like,
no, we don't know until the end of this movie, which still doesn't make sense. No, like, so you're saying that up until that point, you believe that what Benicio del Toro was saying was okay. Like you thought up until that point it was coming from a place of like, hey, you're playing with fire here, because that's what I took from this movie. Is Benicio del Toro's like, I didn't really pick up on any racial tones from Benicio to Cheadle. I felt it was more, well, there are some, obviously there are some racist things back and forth.
The entire beginning of their relationship is, those things are overt in those moments,
But in the specific moments when Benicio del Toro is talking about, hey, you're playing with fire, you're Icarus, you're flying too close to the sun, you need to quit now. I don't think that that's a racial element. I think that's more of a professional, like, courtesy sort of thing, where he's like, hey, you and I, we both do the same thing, and this is you're smart enough that you should know when to back out. So you're saying that you didn't get that.
We had very different reads on those characters. I think the Ronald Russo character is bad from the get-go. Like, he undermines Cheadle every chance he gets. He tries to have him killed twice in this movie. He only reason he goes with him is at any point is because he sees maybe it'll lead to some extra money at some point that he can kill him and take his share. When he mentions the things like the greed and those kind of things, there's almost always, I'll have to rewatch it, but I'm pretty sure there's almost always an element of, your people are always too greedy. There's this element of he's
I don't remember that. I'm not saying it isn't there. I don't remember.
No. And I'm not 100% sure. I've only seen this once, but I do remember those elements of, at least in my read of the character, was he is through his own presuppositions because of Kurt Goins' race, saying those things. He's saying, oh, you're never going to be satisfied. You guys can never get enough. Like, it has nothing to do with the person. Like, he's not, I never got the sense he wanted to help Don Cheadle's character in any way through this movie. I thought it was all, and again, that goes with the theme of who can you trust? And I don't think the Ronald Russo character was in any way somebody Cheadle was supposed to trust on any of that stuff.
Interesting. So, we definitely watched two different movies then, because the entire time for me, and Ian, I'm sorry, but
no, you're fine.
The entire time I was like, I think this movie is just nobody trusts anybody, not specifically Benicio del Toro and Don Cheadle, Goins, and what was Charlie,
the Kieran Culkin character?
Kieran Culkin's character is interesting in and of itself. I think that he is the definitive wild card, of that trio. But also, I think he's the most informed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I think that that's really what kind of divides everybody.
If you guys have time, maybe we should rock a Sif spoil on this one too, because I feel like there are some things.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
About, especially towards the end of this movie. Ian, why don't you weigh in on some of this? I'm curious to kind of hear your interpretation of that relationship. Kind of overall, if you just kind of how you feel about the conversation.
No, that discussion and back and forth was more entertaining than No Tomorrow or whatever we just reviewed. No Tomorrow movements.
Yes.
So on the Russo stuff, I think what I read from it was. Him and everyone is underestimating Goins. Everyone. And whether that be because nobody's heard of him or it comes back to the race thing as well, and that hideous thing where there's an apparent lack of intelligence, which I totally believe that Russo's character thinks that, and everyone else in the movie seems to. I think that's where it comes from, is you can't possibly know the big picture, so I'm not going to treat you with any respect. And all along, Goins is the only one that sees the various setups, and sees everything and sees the big picture, and everyone is patronizing to him, and he just takes it because that's his life. He's had to fight through all of this, and he's just confident that he has the cards. He doesn't always know when to not play them, but he sees the game probably better than anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, and there is another element thematically of this movie that is very much about redlining and the racial situation in the 50s, and the idea of wealth. Where does it come from? How is it accrued? So yeah, I think Soderbergh is definitely working in a lot of racial themes here, as well as the themes of trust. Which, by the way, those themes are very much interrelated. So yeah, I think a lot of what you said is true. And because of those things, I think that is why I did connect more to that character.
Was the fisheye camera just a gimmick, or was there?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. It is. I definitely don't think it's a gimmick. Soderbergh is way too particular about what he does. There were several shots, and by the way, part of what he's doing with that camera is that it is an era-specific wide-angle lens. So it's not technically a fisheye. It's the type of wide-angle lens they would shoot with in the 50s.
Like a panoramic sort of shot, sort of thing.
Yeah. And what it allowed him to do was to get shots of clarity with characters from different rooms and to see both sides of conversations. There are 3 or 4 different scenes that really depend on this wide angle to be able to give us what he wants to give us. There's one where Ray Liotta's character is at his office in his desk while his wife is in the kitchen, and seeing both of them and their reaction to each other is so, I think, important to Soderbergh because of so much of the themes of the movie about trust, and he wants to see the characters' reactions to what people are saying in different rooms, because you can read on their face the distrust or the disbelief or those kind of things. And that happened, I think, at least 3 times, maybe 4, that it was used in that way. So yeah, I definitely think it was specifically done with a purpose. Now, that is different than whether or not it's distracting, and whether, because that can also be true. It can also be distracting to the audience if you notice the sides of the screen, wrapping a little bit, warping a little bit. But I didn't mind it. I kind of liked it. I'm a sucker for Soderbergh's visual choices. I think he's always doing something interesting and creative, whether it's shooting from an iPhone or, doing a particular lens or whatever the case may be. So, yeah.
I really enjoyed that aspect of it. For me, it felt like it's a movie set in the 50s, but it felt like it was filmed in the 70s. And I have no idea how you pull that off, but I was getting French Connection vibes. A lot of that was the score as well, and just the opening credits are very 70s as well. And that hooked me from the first few seconds. I was like, yep, I'm in my happy place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely did have an Uptown Funk kind of intro to it. And then it said, boom, 1950s. I'm like, oh, well, okay. So we're 20 years earlier than I thought we were. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the Tomorrow War is funk.
Yeah, that's the element of it, yeah.
I am steadily moving into loved it territory. This happens with me sometimes. But I just keep thinking of things that Soderbergh chooses to do that just are so interesting and fun. The way he shoots cars in this movie, and the way he shoots the city of Detroit in this movie is really, really cool, because this is a city that at the time was like the 3rd largest city in the country. Like in the 50s, Detroit and the auto industry were...
Oh, that was America.
It was L.A., New York, and Detroit, and now it's L.A., New York, and Chicago. But, for a time, it was like Detroit was, one of the biggest cities in the country. And now it's, it's abandoned, basically.
Yeah.
And he's kind of getting at the heart of that, and kind of he does some stuff with shot angles on the cars in this movie, where he's emphasizing how a window is rolled down, or how a door is opened, or how a trunk closes, or this movie is very automobile centric in a really interesting way, especially knowing it's in Detroit, you know, like, and that's kind of the whole thing that's going on. And again, the whole like underlying MacGuffin, which isn't technically a MacGuffin because it really is, you know, we do find out what it is and why it's
essential and critical,
is about automobiles. So, you know, like, and of course it is. So yeah, anyhow, I that's another part of this I really, really loved.
There's
and
a
when
final
that gets sorry, go on.
I was gonna say there's a final scroll in this movie that I felt was unnecessary.
I don't know. I think it's exactly what Soderbergh wants us to like. He's not like, he told the story he wanted to tell with the characters, and so with the scroll he wants to go, look, this is the point I was making, or this is the MacGuffin. Basically, the final scroll is like, you know, the MacGuffin means something, and this is because by the way, it's true. Like that, this whole movie is based on a true conspiracy that really, really happened. So, you know, it's not on a true, like the story in here isn't true, but the MacGuffin is true. Interestingly enough.
And you got to think a lesser, might be a bit mean, but a lesser director might have opened the film with based on true events because they would put that scroll at the beginning. Yeah, exactly.
But I like that we're figuring it out with the characters.
Yes.
Like Don Cheadle doesn't know what this is about. He just knows it's some sort
doesn't
of,
care.
You know,
this is dollar bills. Doesn't matter what's in the envelope. And when the MacGuffin is revealed, and when you do get the resolution at the end, the stuff and the way that vehicles are shot, for me, I was just like, oh man, that pays dividends. It pays off even more because you can't not notice it as you go through the film, and you're like, that's unusual. And then when you realize what the document is about, you're like, oh man, that this is really about the cars. This is a movie about cars, and you didn't tell me.
That's right. Yeah. I think we're ready for one last thing, especially if we're going to do a SIF spoil and go a little more into detail. So if there is anything else you guys want to chat about, Ian, is there? There's no post-credit scheme. That is true.
I have one last things.
Sure, go for it.
Did it feel a bit Coen-y? Like the structure and how some of it was written gave me like Coen vibes. And
sure.
I loved it. Absolutely loved that.
The crime stuff felt especially Coen-y.
The double crossing and the no one. Does anyone really know how this all ended up okay for most of the people? And they're all just like, well, I don't know how we got into this mess, but it seems to have resolved itself. That's great. Yeah. And if, I mean, heaven forbid if Disney and Soderbergh ever team up, we will lose Aaron entirely.
I'm not gonna lie, I was thinking after I watched this movie, I don't know why it popped in my head, but I'm like, if Soderbergh ever directs a Pixar movie, Aaron is going to flip.
He will implode.
Yeah, because while I was watching this movie, I'm like, I bet Aaron is loving this right now. Yeah. And I feel like I'm the negative guy here, but I liked the movie. Don't forget, I liked it.
Musical Soderbergh Pixar film.
Yeah, it'd be amazing. Andrew, you are in the unenvious position of liking a movie a little bit less than the other two people. I've been in this position before, and then it sounds like you're the one that hates the movie. I think that is good for you. I know.
It's the same with Tomorrowland. I didn't hate it. It just sounds like I did.
Did you have one last thing other than no post-credit scene, Andrew? Yeah, I think we will talk more in spoilers about other things that I want to touch on, but overall, I had a really good time with this, and Soderbergh's got my number. Let Them All Talk just kind of went completely under the radar for a lot of people last year, and it was one of my favorites. He's just consistently telling great stories, and I did a ranking on Letterboxd of the 19 of his movies that I've seen, and there are several I haven't, especially from earlier on. The most prominent I haven't seen is probably Behind the Candelabra. I've never gotten around to seeing that one.
It's interesting, but
I was amazed at like going through that list, just like, oh, like he may be in my top 3 directors of all time now. Like, you know, and that's tough company. Man, I may have to do that list. I may have to make that list in my brain because, you know, you've got Hitchcock and Spielberg are just givens. And it's just like, who else do I put on the Mount Rushmore? You know, like who else is up there for me? And
I don't know, but I just saw Danae leave the chat. You said list.
Yeah, she's not a big.
I would love to rewatch this film. Yeah, I would love to rewatch this film with you, Aaron, because watching somebody enjoy something, like, I really enjoyed it, but you really enjoyed it. And I think
I didn't realize. I gave it a. Sorry, Danae is in the chat, and like somehow creating a paradox where she comments in the chat that he's not wrong about Danae leaving the chat. So like I'm trying to figure out the paradox in my brain here.
Let's just list all the possible paradoxes it could have been.
So basically my one final thing is I am excited to talk about if there were any parts of the actual story or plot that you guys are still confused by. Like if there's still parts you're putting together of what happened where, what happened when, you know, those kind of things. Because I think I pretty much got it, except for one thing that I'm still noodling around and trying to piece together.
I wonder if it's the same thing.
It might be. Look forward to talking in the sixth all right, before we head on to our best ever challenge, just a reminder that you can be a SiftPop member. That all happens at Patreon, patreon.com/SiftPop, and there are different levels that come with different perks. You can go check it all out there. One of those perks is a weekly bonus podcast. Every week we record a little conversation, 5, 10, 15 minutes about something, either that you guys suggest or that's on our minds. This week, as mentioned, we talked about the difference between movie culture in the UK and the US. If you want to listen to that, as well as have commercial-free podcasts, monthly video hangouts, those kind of stuff, you can check all that out at patreon.com/SiftPop. And thank you to existing SiftPop members. Love you, appreciate you. You really do keep this thing going, and we appreciate it. All right, let's get into the best ever challenge. Best ever J.K. Simmons movies. It's quite a little list of movies Mr. Simmons has been in.
Much longer than I expected, and I felt immediately bad for having not seen 90% of it.
Nice. We'll start at number 5. We will go to number 1. I will let you know ahead of time. I just picked a couple honorable mentions. There are certainly plenty of them, but I just kind of picked my favorite J.K. Simmons movies.
I have a pretty good amount, so I'll just pick up the scraps at the end for those.
Okay. All right. We'll start at number 5, and I'll kick us off this time. I had Up in the Air at my number 5.
Good movie.
This is just such a great film. Great performances. I rewatched it within the last few years, and just really, really holds up well. Not only with the performances, but also with the subject matter and just kind of going into, the idea of how culture is changing, how jobs are changing. All that stuff seems more relevant than ever. So Up in the Air is my number 5.
Very cool.
Andrew, why don't you go next?
Well, yours was a Jason Reitman movie, and so was mine. Nice. I'm going to go with his directorial debut, actually. Thank You for Smoking.
Yeah.
What a fascinating movie. For the simple fact that you are rooting for the chief spokesperson for Big Tobacco on why smoking is cool. It's such an interesting movie. Like Aaron, Aaron Eckhart. I always have trouble with his name. Aaron Eckhart's character is so charming and charismatic that you're like, smoking is cool. Yeah.
I'm going to start smoking.
Yeah. It's funny because he does that whole, bring your dad to school and have your dad tell us what he does for a living. And you're like, oh, so he's going to go to this school and tell little 10-year-old kids that smoking is cool, stuff like that. And he's part of that. I forget what the 4 horsemen or whatever it is. It was like him, alcohol, and firearms, and somebody else. They all meet up for drinks on all the stuff they have to deal with. It's a fascinating movie with a pretty interesting message to it.
Yeah. No, that's a good choice. What do you got at number 5, Ian?
I'm really glad that the graphics aren't here because I changed my list last minute. But I felt too guilty. I wasn't going to do it, but now I can. So at number 5, it's a bit of a cheat. He's not in it a lot, but Spider-Man 2.
Sure.
There is no cheat. There is no cheat. Yeah. If he is in it, he is in it, and it counts. Yeah. And Spider-Man 2 is a great Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, it's not the most. Yeah, it's not the most nuanced J.K. Simmons performance you're ever going to see. He's playing a caricature, and he's picked it up in a lot of the animated Spider-Man stuff as well. But he is J. Jonah Jameson. He is that character. He does exactly what he's supposed to do, and it's not my favourite Spider-Man film, but it is my favourite one that he's in. I think he does a great job, and that is just a fantastic
I'd agree with that.
entry in the Spider-Verse.
Spider-Man 2 is a very underappreciated movie.
I agree.
Like out of all the Tobey Maguire, like the Tobey Maguire and the Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man 2 is the best out of all.
Yeah, absolutely. And those Spider-Man films set the tone and the groundwork for what Marvel's doing now. They more than any other superhero film, Spider-Man did it first.
Yeah.
Well, and it sounds like, if my understanding of the winds blowing are correct, that they may be introduced as canon in the current Marvel universe. So
that seems to change every week. They're all in it. None of them are in it. They're all in it. None of them are in it.
Yeah. Well, we know Doc Ock is in it for sure.
And
like
J.K. Simmons.
And J.K. Simmons. So it'll be interesting.
Number 4.
My number 4 is Palm Springs.
Same.
Nice. Recent addition to the J.K. Simmons library. We've talked a lot recently, whether it be on year-end episodes or other best ever challenges or just in reviewing the movie recently, how awesome this movie is. What a pleasant surprise and just a ton of fun to watch.
It's a list of shame for me from last year.
You should check it out, man.
Everyone I trust says it's amazing. I just need to do it.
Yeah. No, it is. It really is.
I don't know if it's one of those, like, I had such low expectations going into this movie, and I was shocked by how good it is that I don't know, now that it is getting such high praise going in with that high bar. Do you know anything about the movie?
I know that Andy Samberg is in it, and there is a swimming pool.
I will say this.
I got that from the poster.
I'll say this. This is a movie I really did appreciate going in knowing nothing about it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say too much, but go in knowing absolutely nothing and enjoy the ride. It's
on Netflix over here. I'll probably stick it on tomorrow.
There you go.
There you go.
Awesome.
Andrew had that at number 4 as well. Ian, what is your number 4?
I'm moving my list around again. The freedom, the chaos. 21 Bridges.
That's on my recent list of shame. I haven't caught 21 Bridges yet.
Watch this film. It's
Chadwick Boseman too, right?
Chadwick Boseman. It's not the best film of its type, but I really super thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's fantastic.
I did want to.
He's not in it. Yeah, he's not in it a huge amount. He is playing exactly the kind of cop that you think J.K. Simmons will play. But yeah, absolutely nails it. Chadwick Boseman is really understated in this film. It's simple enough premise, but it's just delivered. It's like Taken. It's not going to blow your mind, but it does what that genre should do with a movie. Doesn't disappoint. Yeah, loved it.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. That's a great recommend. Let's see, on to our number 3s.
Yep.
This is where I have Zootopia. There's kind of that big run of Disney animated films, non-Pixar Disney animated films, that I think they kind of continue to be on, and they're just all really solid movies. And I think Zootopia even stands above a lot of those movies. There's a lot of fun to be had here. There's some really beautiful themes here. It's interesting how some of the racial allegory in Zootopia has aged in the last decade or so, because there are some parts of it I think they would have done a little bit differently now, and then there are other parts of it that you're like, this is such a important, beautiful thing to say, and but I really like it. I really think Zootopia is great, and definitely recommend from me. So that is my number 3.
Nice.
Andrew, what do you got at number 3?
Well, you're gonna trump it, so I might as not even well say it, but La La Land.
Sure, I'll trump that. Ian, your number 3.
Number 3, I've got Burn After Reading.
Trump.
Again.
Oh,
nice,
your Trump spike.
Nice,
Andrew.
cool. I'm happy to talk about that. Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so we're on to our number 2s. This is where we can talk about La La Land, unless Ian trumps it. Unless Ian has it at number 1.
No, we all know what number 1 is. Let's not play that game.
Yeah. Listen, I'm trying to maintain some semblance of suspense.
You're doing
here.
the thing that you said, where the movie has a spoiler that it doesn't want to give you until everyone knows the spoiler to this.
This isn't a movie. This is a podcast. It's a different thing. It's a different thing.
Technically, this was I'm curious what everybody's 5 through number 2 is.
Yeah, well, exactly, because we did the same thing last time, because we had the same film, but for a different reason.
Well, that's fun. That's just poor planning on my part.
I was actually kind of no pun intended, up in the air about whether Aaron would have the number 1 or La La Land, because I know how much Aaron loves La La Land. But hey, we're here now.
I do.
Aaron, why is La La Land?
You made the right choice.
I had La La Land at number 2. Andrew, you had it at number 3. Is that right? Yeah, you had it at number 3. Look, guys, we won't be done talking about this. Not to spoil our number 1s, but Damien Chazelle knows how to make movies.
Yeah, especially movies about music.
Movies about music, but just I really feel like he has such a great grasp on how the audience is feeling, where they are. Like, he takes them where they need to be. So yeah, Damien Chazelle is incredible. Musicals are my thing. The nod, or one of my things, the nod to all the different classical musicals in here is beautiful. The fact that it's original new music is astounding to me. I still find the soundtrack so very memorable and singable and fun. And the performances, it's what's so beautiful about this movie to me is something that I think a lot of people didn't like about it. A lot of people wanted better singer dancers in the top roles, and I just think they are so perfect and human, and I think they dance great, and I think they sing great. Is it Gene Kelly or Fred Astaire? No, but it's Emma and Ryan. I mean, what are you gonna do? Like, it's absolutely, their chemistry is. There's a reason they're in several movies together. They do really good stuff together. I think it's hilarious. I think it's fun. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. So yeah,
I know this would have made my list if I'd seen it. This is a big list of shame one. I know.
Do you usually like musicals?
I heavily dislike musicals, and that's exactly why.
So there you go. I totally get that.
I love Hamilton. I held off on Hamilton for so long, and I freaking love Hamilton. So I'm prepared to like La La Land. It just, for me to do it justice, I've got to catch it on a day where I can watch a musical.
Sure. Yeah. I totally get that. Totally
I'll tell you this. Don't let the opening segment
check out. I'm done. You're singing at me. I'm leaving.
No, it's one of those things where, like, the opening segment is not the defining quality or even tone of the movie. This movie is much more
of what's coming next.
Exactly. It's much more interested in telling a story than doing dance numbers and having songs and stuff like that. And it's a movie that really understands how to make a song or a dance number impact the story as a whole, as opposed to it being its own entity. So as me, somebody who is not really a fan of musicals like you, I can really, really recommend La La Land. It's superb.
I would say, if the song part of it is not what you're into, pay attention to the filmmaking part of it. Even that opening scene is a simulated one shot, and it's absolutely incredible. It's a technical achievement, whether or not you're enjoying the music or not. But yeah. So anyhow.
It's weird because I like music. I really, really like music. But for some reason, when you put music and movies together, more often than not, it's a crutch or it slows it down. But I'm sure La La Land does it well.
But singing a song and using a song to tell a story when you sing a song, you are telling a story a lot of times. Yeah. But as far as using it in a visual sense, like, it changes things. It's a different feel to listen to music and to watch a musical. And the type of music that is in musicals is often almost a different genre of music. It's very bright. It's very expressive. So there's that.
And I definitely blame my brain for this. Of just right, you guys are going through some stuff here. You would not start dancing and singing. You all hate each other. He just stole your apple, and now he's dancing with a monkey. Could you just stop? Get back to the story, Aladdin.
So you have seen La La Land. I didn't realize
right,
you had actually seen it. All right, let's get to our number Whiplash.
Nope, I still got my number 2.
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Still got my number 2.
Ian, what's your number 2?
I don't know if this counts. I don't care. Invincible.
It doesn't.
TV show.
No, we don't do TV shows here. We do.
Good.
No, these are movies.
Tough. I don't care. Let's just talk about Whiplash. No, Invincible.
I got my number 2 still.
Oh, we didn't get your number 2, Andrew? I thought we did for some reason.
No, I trumped Burn After Reading.
Oh, that's what it was.
That's
what it was. And then we'll get to Ian's rule breaking. But yeah, let's talk about Burn After Reading first.
This movie is banana hammocks. Yes. It is insane because it can go back and forth between being No Country for Old Men shocking violence to ridiculous Big Lebowski. It is every single Coen Brothers movie compiled into one. The craziness of this, story going back and forth. And it's kind of like J.K. Simmons is narrating how insane everything is because he's just as like, this is ridiculous. He has the same thought process as the rest of us. I will tell you this right now. Brad Pitt steals this movie. This is like some of the most fun I've ever seen Brad Pitt have. And the climax / twist with him and George Clooney is one of the most shocking things. And like, it's one of those like where as soon as that moment happens in the movie, I'm like, I actually like got the breath knocked out. I'm like, oh, whoa. I did not know that was going to happen. That's one of those like, okay, so we're in No Country for Old Men now. Okay, so fine. Okay.
Yeah, we're back to that genre.
Yeah, we're whipping into that one. But I think George Clooney is hilarious in this. Frances McDormand is always great. I think everybody is perfectly cast in this movie. Perfectly cast. It is one of my favorite Coen Brothers movies.
Nice.
This is one of the times where I realised actors can act differently. So I was 18 when this movie came out, and it was the first 8. So our ratings over here are a bit different. We have 12, 15, 18. So it'd be the first ever R-rated movie that I was able to see. And I was like, hey, you're not Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt does like all of the things with the action and stuff. He's acting completely differently.
He's just dancing on a treadmill, man.
Yeah, he's just dancing about in a gym. It's great. And specifically J.K. Simmons stuff, it just kills me. It's like, so what did we learn, Palmer? Well, I guess we learned not to do it again, but I'm forked if I know what we did. Like, it's just brilliant that he is exactly what we're feeling. The guy, the agent that's bringing him all of these updates, he's waiting for a beating. He's waiting for him to be told, like, you've really screwed this up. And J.K. Simmons is just like, well, I guess that resolved itself.
Yeah.
What do we do next? Well, I don't actually think we need to do anything. I think we're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
J.K. Simmons is so perfectly exhausted by what's happening in this movie.
I'm not even mad. I'm just confused. It's great. I love it.
Okay.
Yeah. I really enjoy it. It's, I just have a lot of other Coen Brothers I put above it usually. But yeah, no, I'm glad we're talking about it for sure. All right, Invincible, Ian.
We'll do it quick and I'll send an alternate for wherever this goes. I just think it's great.
You're good.
I think it's,
I love it.
I think him.
It is great.
I've got some issues with, and I think I'm the only person in the entire planet that has issues with the amount of gore. And I think by the end of it is gratuitous, but regardless, what J.K. Simmons does and his acting and his voice acting in this is phenomenal. Like, there's every name under the sun is in this show.
Stephen Yeun.
But yeah, well, the entire Walking Dead cast is in this show, but he really steals it for me. And it might be because I'm picturing Fletcher from Whiplash the entire time, because it's in a lot of ways the same character. But yeah, his scenes were fantastic. Yeah.
You're not the only person on the planet. I think the gore is gratuitous as well. I do think it needs some of it. I think it doesn't have
Agreed.
the same brutal impact if you don't see some of that. But I do think there is a lot of, gory glory, where it's like...
I don't quite need to see so many teeth leaving people's faces.
Yeah, we're doing this because we can, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But story-wise, it's really well done. And it's dealing in some areas that... certainly lots of movies and TV shows have played in before, but it's doing it in an environment in a genre that hasn't really dealt with some of that stuff, and it's like I don't know, it's like if the TV show The Boys decided to be a little deeper with its family dynamics and and consequences, personal relational consequences.
If anything, The Boys is more of a cartoon than Invincible is.
In some ways, yeah. In many ways, it is. All right, now we will do our number Whiplash.
Yes.
So, congratulations, Whiplash, you win. All right, on to the honorable mentions.
I honestly, Aaron, don't know what else I can say about this movie.
No, it's fine. People get it. We love Whiplash. J.K. Simmons was in it, and not only in it, but
all over it.
He is it.
Defining.
He is it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my third. I think it's my third favorite movie of all time, and I think
That's
it's
awesome.
I think it's the best movie ever made.
Yeah, I've got it in the 30s. I think it's in the 30s for me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's not quite my tempo, but yeah.
All right, let's talk about honorable mentions. Ian, did you have any that you wanted to throw out there?
Completely, honestly, no, I did not.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm going to throw out a couple that are kind of personal to me that a lot of people wouldn't think of. Hidalgo. I like Hidalgo more than most people. And J.K. Simmons is in that. This is a horse racing across the desert movie.
It's a fun movie. I actually like it. It's a good family movie.
Good. Yeah. So anyhow, that is one that you might want to check out. Klaus, I mentioned earlier, would come back. J.K. Simmons does a voice in the Netflix Christmas movie. I think came out last Christmas or the Christmas before.
Two Christmases ago.
Really solid Christmas movie. Really, really fun. So check out Klaus if you haven't. And For the Love of the Game, which is a Kevin Costner baseball movie. I've mentioned at times that I don't know how much of my love for this movie has to do with the fact that he's pitching for the Detroit Tigers. But I admit that that's part of it. But also I think the way the perfect game is handled is really intense and interesting. So I enjoy that movie. And then Young Adult, speaking of Jason Reitman, wanted to mention that one as well because I think it's really, really good. What do you got, Andrew?
Well, as long as we're talking about Jason Reitman, let's talk about Juno.
Yeah.
Love
Probably
Juno. It's a great movie. I think I was like the right age when this one came out because I think it was either like fresh out of high school or still in high school. I can't remember. But no, Juno was just like super amazing. J.K. Simmons as her father is hilarious. Another movie I'm going to throw is I Love You, Man. I think it's a very underrated, friendship movie. I think that, both of them are just, the chemistry is perfect. And then a movie that I thought was going to be really bad, but turned out to be surprisingly good is Patriots Day. I thought Patriots Day had some really powerful emotional moments in it. I thought it was going to be a bad Marky Mark movie, but no, this is like, I should have known. I'm not going to lie. I should have known that this was going to be, one of those powerful movies because it's not only Marky Mark, but it's Peter Berg. And Peter Berg just has my number when it comes to movies. Like, I love Lone Survivor. And I'm trying to remember the oil rig one that he did with Mark Wahlberg
yeah.
That was man.
I want to say
that?
Deep Impact, but that's the asteroid.
No,
movie.
it's Deepwater Horizon. That's
Deepwater
why.
Horizon.
That's what,
yeah. I mean, yeah, that movie is. Both of those movies are superb. I think both Deepwater and I think
really
they came
enjoyed
out.
that.
They both came out the same year, which is crazy. Yeah. So, yep.
We did a Deep
There you
Impact Armageddon.
Yeah, they did.
There you go.
Patriots Day. And that's going to be my honorable mentions.
Nice. I'm surprised you didn't throw the True Grit remake in there.
I will then.
Wait,
I forgot he was in that. Yeah.
is J.K. Simmons in that?
Ish.
Yeah, I don't remember actually. I just when my research was like, oh, True Grit, I didn't remember
he
that.
He played the horse.
Same role as Hidalgo. That's amazing.
Yeah, there we go.
He's
when it comes to
I love the original.
When it comes to westerns, I'm in the minority. I'm not really a John Wayne fan. And this newer iteration, I thought it was really good. Maybe on like a second viewing, I've only seen it once. On a second viewing, I would like more, but I just remember not being able to understand anything that he said.
Yeah,
so,
I think that's quite deliberate. Yeah,
I think that
it's not very John Wayne-y, the original True Grit. It's probably the least John Wayne-y that he is.
Yeah, I just saw that recently, actually, for the first time. So the original. All right, let's move on to our buried treasure. Ian, as the guest, you get to finish buried treasure. Andrew, why don't you start us?
So with the Tomorrow War, I was thinking, this is a really interesting, time travel movie. What would be a fun time travel movie to talk about in my buried treasure? So I'm going to go with the quote unquote most accurate / overly complicated time travel movie of all time. Anybody want to take a guess?
Please say Primer.
12 Monkeys.
No, not 12 Monkeys. It's going to be Primer.
Yes, good man. I love this film so much.
Okay, so I just recently rewatched Primer. I still love it. I think this is a phenomenal movie. But I'll tell you something. I went on YouTube afterwards, and I wish I could remember the actual name of the video, but there is an animated play-by-play on
somewhere.
Yeah, so it's like a Aaron A, and then they call it like Abe A or Aaron B. And that it helps you keep track of where you are in the timeline. I'm not saying that the movie does a bad job at that. I'm just saying that this movie is so dedicated to being as accurate as they think time travel works that it can get confusing. But man, once you understand what this movie is and what this movie is doing, it is phenomenal. And it is one of the most simplistic plot synopses ever. It's the execution that makes it complicated, but also great. It's guys that want to go back in time and make money on the stock market. That's the movie. But
without bumping into themselves.
But yeah, without bumping into themselves. The amount of mathematics and philosophical implications that this movie goes on is crazy.
And that's what breaks them. That philosophical thing, as soon as that question is asked, there was no going back, because as soon as you've had the thought, at some point in the future, you will do this and break the time travel. And the movie doesn't care about explaining how it works. It is the ultimate, I will trust the audience and hope you get there.
Oh, Aaron, Shane Carruth, who directed and is the main star in this, as Aaron. I'm pretty sure he was a theoretical physicist before I think that was his job. I need to look it up so I'm actually right. But he was actually a theoretical physicist before he wrote and directed this movie, because he wanted it to be a time travel movie that was as accurate as possible. And actually, speaking of the Tomorrow War, I actually think that the Tomorrow War follows kind of the same rules as Primer, in the sense that time travel can't exist until time travel is invented. You can't go back before. Like in Primer, you can't go back.
I don't think the Tomorrow War does that.
I think it does, because I think they say in the Tomorrow War they can't send people back before that machine is turned on.
No. It's just they have one location they can send it, because it's 30 years in the past.
Yeah, it's a progressive 30 years.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. So it doesn't follow Primer rules.
Yeah,
because the very first time they come back
is the Primer rules.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I thought, but no, you're absolutely right.
But anyway,
I love the way Primer sets it up to where you can't go back in time before time travel is invented. Once you turn on the box. Yeah,
I mean, that's logical. right? That's logical. If time travel were invented that you could just jump willy-nilly, wouldn't we have, met time travelers before? Like, I know humans. We're not great at
keeping secrets. No.
So,
but we're also not good at believing other people too. So
yeah.
But no, I'm right there with.
Yet some of the things we do believe.
I wanted to mention a show for my buried treasure that I'm not sure if I've recommended before. It was on Netflix, I think, for 2 seasons. Got canceled from Netflix and now is back on, I'm going to say Adult Swim. I should look it up because I'm actually not sure where it's showing. But it's Tuca and Birdie. Tuca, Tuca, and Birdie, Bertie. And follows the couple of... it's an animated show where the characters are vaguely animals or plants, and it follows a toucan voiced. I should have looked all of this.
Tiffany Haddish.
Yeah, it's Tiffany Haddish, and who is Birdie?
Ali Wong.
Thank you. Tiffany Haddish and Ali Wong are the main characters. Stephen Yun, who we've mentioned before, is the husband of Birdie as well. This is one of the quirkiest, most interesting TV shows I've ever seen. It has very, very much a female perspective on the world, and I love that. I love that there's like, a show that I can get into to, find a different set of eyes to view the world through, and this is kind of one of those shows for me. So it's probably unlike a lot of what you've seen, but yeah, it's really interesting. It is very adult. Something you might want to check out. Andrew, have you seen any of the episodes?
I've seen the pilot, and I was intrigued by the art style, which is in and of itself very distinctive. I can't really think of any other show that comes anywhere close to this type of art style. It's almost not Van Gogh-ish, but I'm trying to remember his name. This particular
Salvador
artist.
Dali.
Yeah, kind of Dali-ish, where it's like, I mean, technically that's where those body parts are supposed to be, but they don't look like the eye up here and then an eye
2
down
inches
here.
too low.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. It's interesting. But you're saying that I should give it a second chance.
I said, maybe the show deals with some serious like issues amongst this weird, quirky world, kind of like BoJack Horseman does.
Yeah,
like this show isn't like written as cleverly necessarily as BoJack Horseman. That's one of the things I like about BoJack is how intricately it's written. But it's similar in the idea that it's these strange characters that are dealing with deeper topics. The entire main storyline, one of the entire main storylines, is about the idea of just kind of, I'm trying to think of the right word for it because abuse is too strong of a word, not sexual abuse, but the idea of just the things that women deal with on a day-to-day basis, and an employer that treats her in a certain way and the consequences that he does or doesn't face because of, like, it deals with some kind of really serious things that we need to cope with and wrestle with and try to understand better. So yeah, I think there is something there in Tuca and Birdie. So if you want to check that out. Ian, what is your buried treasure for the week?
I'm going off book again. I'm just going to rewrite the email that I sent to Phil entirely and just apologise because I really liked Andrew's theme. So my buried treasure is Travellers, which is a TV show that ran for 3 seasons. It's on the UK Netflix. I'm not too sure where it is in America, but this has an interesting take on time travel. And I think it's done really, really well. It's actually closer to the primer version of time travel, where once they've picked a moment that they've traveled back to, they can't travel before that because it will undo all of the stuff that they're now trying to fix. So the premise is there is a disaster that happens. I really liked it. There's a disaster in the future that is basically going to wipe out humanity. They think they've pinpointed where stuff has started to go wrong, and once they go back to that point, they can only travel back in time after that point and people just keep getting sent back in time to fix the problems, and shenanigans ensue. There's definitely, it strays and it meanders, and I think each series is like 10 episodes, but it has some filler episodes as if it was a 26 episode season, and you're like, you really don't have time for this. But the episodes that are great are fantastic, and it needed and deserved another 4 seasons. And the Traveller fans are like on the same level as Firefly fans. They are screaming for more content, and I don't think it's going to come at this point. But watch it. It does wrap up. You don't have to worry about it leaving on a cliffhanger. They finished knowing that there was going to be no more, so it is a complete story.
What I liked about Travelers is the fact that it took something that you'd seen so many times in the time traveling genre of films and added something new to it. Instead of people traveling back through time, it's their consciousness that travels back through time, and the consciousness kind of takes over a host in what we live in, like the modern times. So it's like, it's kind of invasive in a way, like you're taking over somebody's life. You know, there's ramifications for taking over somebody. Like if somebody came back and they took over Aaron, like, you know, I'm sure Aaron's family would be like, where's dad? Or where's
and they deal with that a lot, because
exactly.
The caveat is that, the consciousness is sent back, but it's into somebody that was going to die. So seconds before they die, they are taken over by somebody from the future, but they still have to live their normal lives and interact with their families. And there's lots of Wonder Woman 1984 sketchiness about that the show has to deal with.
All right. I feel like I should go back and change mine to 12 Monkeys. I didn't realize we were doing a theme here. So
and Travelers has a 12 Monkeys theme.
That is Travelers, which I believe is on Netflix. Primer is not streaming anywhere that I can tell, and Tuca and Birdie is on Adult Swim.
Here's this film you can't watch.
You have to get a time machine. And,
you have to go back.
You can find it.
Go back.
I'm sure you could find it on Apple or Amazon or somewhere and rent it or buy it.
Yeah, you could probably buy it. But who knows? Well, we did
funny,
it, guys.
I would recommend buying Primer instead of renting it simply for the fact it's going to take multiple viewings to understand what's going on in this movie.
Yeah.
It has to be on Amazon. I mean, you can't spell Primer without Prime.
Amazon Prime.
All right,
thanks for listening, guys.
We did a podcast. Congratulations
So
to
Jeff
everyone
Bezos is actually
who set out to podcast. You have now done exactly what you set out to do. Thanks so much for joining us today for SiftPop. It is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network. You can find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out once again today.
Thank you, buddy.
Big thanks to Phil for producing the audio and video show.
Thank you.
And thank you to Ian for hanging out with us again today. Ian, now is your moment to tell people where to find you online, send them somewhere, promote something, whatever you want to do.
You can find me on Twitter at galactic_Dave. And I also do a movie podcast that's a bit haphazard and just talks about everything, to be honest, called An Englishman and an Irishman Go to the Movies. He is from Ireland, the island. Not
the island or the Ireland?
The island. Not the island from Lost, but an island called Ireland next to the island that I'm on.
Yeah. And if you take a plane there, what happens at the end of your plane journey?
You land.
I land. Say it, Ian. What happens?
I land.
I land.
There you go.
Got it. I just went straight for the Lost theme music. Sorry.
Yes, you should. As
bit
you
more
always
abstract.
Should.
Yeah.
Much love and gratitude to our SiftPop members for making SiftPop a real thing. Your monthly support helps out quite a bit. $3 a month is where it starts. You can check out the different levels and the different fun perks at patreon.com/SiftPop. Lots of ways to connect with us. Feel free to leave a comment, a rating, or a review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And if you want to send us an email, you can do that to feedback@siftpop.com. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like the show too, so let them know about it, and that listening is much easier than a dozen people landing in the same pool from hundreds of feet in the air. We will be back next week with Black Widow, and I'm not sure what we're doing we may do some Loki next week, but we'll definitely talk Black Widow, and we will see you then.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you to the live video chat. Love you guys. Danae, thanks for popping in. Always good to see you. Amazing Kale. See you as well. Mark, thanks for being there. Jay Bourgeois, thanks for hanging out. And Stuart, see all you guys in the comments. We've got some spoilers to record, so we're going to do that off air. But wanted to say thank you. Appreciate you guys. And we should be back on a Sunday schedule next week, sometime in the Sunday afternoon time. So we will see you guys then. Bye.
Bye.